Greetings, members one and all of the Salivation Nation. What would you do if the leaders of your nation advised you to stockpile coins and banknotes? That would be quite a shocker in today's world, wouldn't it? Considering that most everybody is gearing more towards digital transactions and using it naturally, why would the government tell us to stockpile cash and coins? Put them under our bed? Why would governments tell us to do that? Well, we're going to find out here based off of a story that was shared with me by Cyber Curtain Twitcher about what the government of Sweden is telling its citizens to do. And I think this makes a pretty good case for precious metals, even though the story is about coins and cash. Stockpiling coins and banknotes, Sweden has told its citizens to squirrel away hard cash under their beds in case of a cyber attack. Cashless payments are all the rage, but people in Sweden have been told to stash away notes and coins in case of a cyber attack on the nation's banks. Digital payments offer convenience for both buyers and sellers alike, and the Scandinavian nation has been an eager adopter of the technology. Now government experts are concerned that people could be left without any money should its computer networks become victim to an attack. Sweden's Civil Contingencies Agency has issued guidance to every household telling residents to stockpile cash in small denominations for use in emergency. The warning will ring alarm bells around the world as developed nations increasingly make the move to a cashless society. Emergencies envisioned by the Swedish government range from power cuts to other accident interruptions to computer networks through terrorism and cyber warfare. The government recommends that each citizen keep cash under their bed, according to a report in the Times. Natalie Sini, who chairs an independent review into access to cash, told a conference last week, if we don't take action now in this country, we're only a couple of years away from Sweden. Sweden's big message to us is plan now before you get into a mess. Sweden hit its crisis when its equivalent of the NHS declared it was going cashless. Sweden became the first European country to issue modern banknotes in the year 1661, ahead of the Bank of England, which issued theirs in 1694. Government figures suggest that 15% of the nation's citizens would find life difficult if they could not access and spend their money immediately. Riksbank, the country's central bank, last week called for an inquiry into risk posed by a future cashless society. It suggests that Swedish politicians should create the world's first state-backed form of digital money. And you're saying that's where a lot of these nations and where the natural progression of cryptocurrencies are going, where the state is going to get involved into digital money or cryptocurrency of some sort. Officials told Parliament that hard cash was important, not just in times of crisis and war, but also in peacetime. Stefan Ingves, head of Riksbank, last year warned that a cashless society of the future put too much power into the hands of the companies responsible for payment processing. So it's interesting, and I think that may be a foretaste of what could come in the future for other nations, especially in this point in time. Now, you may say, well, what about if technology increases, maybe putting the ledger or putting even your money onto a thumb drive? And if somebody has a way to process, and with power and renewable energy is becoming much more commonplace, couldn't they just take that technology, put it on a thumb drive with a balance or some sort of device, card or some sort, and it could be processed through some sort of Faraday caged situation in case there was an EMP? I think we're a ways away from that kind of thing to occur. And so therefore, the idea of having bills and coins makes sense. And at least for now, pun intended. And that's where we'll probably be as well. But the thing is that usually most Western nations, especially larger Western nations, would probably be very cautious about such a thing, as it could create a panic. But I think it's a good idea to do. But if it comes from on high, the president in a nationalized address, even in Sweden, I doubt this came as a nationalized address. It's probably just something that was put out there as a tip through their website or what have you. But I do think it's something important to do, to have cash on hand, away from the bank, at least some of it, in order to survive in the case of such a thing. And I do that as well, not a whole lot, but small bills is one way to do it. But how this relates to precious metals is that those of us who stack silver and gold, we hold these coins for exactly that same reason. It is the ultimate insurance policy. It is a way to protect us in times of economic hardship or crisis. And that crisis could also mean things like, power outages, EMPs, and the like. Where this may differ and may not be as useful is in areas where silver's not recognized. If I was to take this silver dollar, and let's say there is a massive cyber attack, and everybody can't access their money, I don't think I could just walk down and make trade with this silver dollar. People would look at it and probably not know really even what it is. They'd immediately question it right away in the immediate aftermath. And that's why it's so important, this community, so that we can educate the public on things like silver and gold, so that they understand that no, this is not just $1. This has an intrinsic value that is far above that. It's just the denomination on the coin. But it's not as liquid as cold, hard cash that you see here. People understand these. Even those that make digital transactions know what money looks like in your respective nations. And so when you have dollar bills or the currency of your nation and you use them in transactions, people are going to recognize it immediately. Which means that we're not that far enough removed from the digital system. Even those who make these transactions every day and never use cash, they understand it and they know what it looks like. But that could change. That literally could change within 10 or 12 years as we move even further away from using hard cash. If that happens, then a re-education program would have to take place, just like one would have to take place right now for silver. Something like that would have to take place for cash. So I think it's quite telling what Sweden is doing. And I think it's going to be quite an interesting and fascinating situation to see where things go. Because right now the figures from the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm show that only 18% of all payments made today are in cash, which is a 15% drop from last year. So it's going to be a fast-moving situation in these developed countries where we become more and more cashless, not because of any mandate by any government, just because of convenience. Fungibility is literally in your phone or in some sort of computer. Figures from the Swedish Trade Federation show that the Swedish retailers say that 80% of their commerce comes from card payments. And that number will probably be 90% by next year, 2020. That's the appetite for the digital commerce. And that's in Sweden. So that nation itself may become the world's first cashless society. it may not be economically viable for them to even print dollar bills or kroners or whatever the currency is there. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how things play out. And but the question remains, as we here in the United States, we sort of hold on to tradition, and I think the United Kingdom as well. And I think there's a great deal of people that still use cash. I use cash to this day. But rapidly things are changing, and it'll probably just be a matter of time before more and more people exponentially move into that cashless realm. And I would recommend everybody have some cash on hand outside of the banking system. And it's not to say that you shouldn't use the banking system, but in case of emergency. Now here we have the FDIC, which I know only covers some things, but there's a chance you could lose all of your money that's inside of the bank as digital ones and zeros without any way of getting it back. It may not be recoverable. I think it only covers so much, and I think it's only under certain circumstances. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, at least under the R system, I think there may be some clauses where they can actually take that money if they need it or what have you. So this provides a way. It also provides some risk as well. There are risks with having cash on hand, not only because of fire, theft, and what have you, but puts responsibility on you to protect it. There is no insurance policy really for cash if it gets lost or stolen. But regardless, I do think you spread that risk around in times like this, and you'll thank yourself later if there ever is a crisis. But post your thoughts below on this. Thanks again to CyberCurtain Twitcher for sending this information along to me. I would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for watching, and encourage you to please rate, comment, and subscribe.